Welcome to Coffee with Kehoe. And today's theme is modernization with a customer first focus. And with me today to help me in this conversation around modernization is Amy Pearson, our WaTech Chief of Staff. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the customer experience. I think modernization is really about starting there with looking at the customer experience and being aware of how they're engaging with services and a particular service, getting out into the community, talking with our residents, understanding what's working, what's not, what the pain points are, and then really applying user-centered design to really the new user interface, right? So that they can engage in a way that's seamless, where they can navigate to the services they need, and it's very efficient and effective for them. Because right now, what we're finding is that we're not really in tune enough with the people we serve.
Right.
We're not getting out there and understanding their experience. And what that creates is a culture of we know what's best. Right,
Yeah.
From a design perspective, and we know that's the wrong approach. So we're seeing a lot more engagement and focus on user-centered design than in the past. And by starting there instead of at the back end with the technology, we can really create an experience on the front end that decreases the friction and the pain points. And really creates that one door for our residents into Washington State services.
Well, an opportunity to be innovative with our technology, because we really should be striving to meet the needs of the client, which should be a challenge to us as opposed to being just limited by what we know about the current technology. It's if a client comes to us and says, we need this, then the technology needs to figure out how to serve that client. I think also, we've historically been driven by implementing policy as opposed to walking in the shoes of the resident or the family that we serve here in Washington.
Yep. So that user-centered design methodology and practice is really becoming something that we see a lot in the projects in our portfolio, with an emphasis of starting there versus the technology. And then from there, looking at the business processes and how the business processes then align with those services that the customers are using. And we're seeing this concept of journey mapping as a discipline. So talk a little bit about that and what that experience is like, and how is that different than what we used to do with process improvement?
Yeah, I think typically, we've looked at business process flows from typically how it's supposed to flow through the system, as opposed to journey mapping for me is more empathetic. It's what is the end user's experience? How do they feel as they're engaging with our services? Where are the pain points, and how do we use technology? How do we use policy to ease that pain point, to make it a better experience, not just a better process?
Right, and then from the journey mapping also can it maps out the current process, but it has that sentiment of whether it's a state employee using the process or
right, the different personas.
How are they feeling, and how efficient is each step in the process? Is there manual processes that could be automated? And you get a real sense of what adjustments need to be made in addition to the new front end or the customer facing aspect as well.
Yep.
And then you can start to align data and technology to that journey map. So you get the complete picture of process flow, sentiment, the empathy you're talking about with each step, and then aligning the technology and the data that's so important get that full picture of what's happening. And then you can start your modernization journey from there.
Yep.
But you start with the front end, you move back to the business flow, and then to the technology.
Right, and identifying the layers like the data that can support multiple entry points.
When we're talking about the customer experience and designing a new front door to the state of Washington, equity and accessibility come up a lot. So talk a little bit about the equity and accessibility piece of user-centered design, how important that is as we design systems and policy and programs and processes for our residents.
You know, in terms of digital equity and accessibility, we know that, you know, majority of our residents and families and clients are served or able to access our services, but there's still a number of areas and communities that don't have stable internet access or aren't able to access services because of legacy applications that don't handle mobile services. Clients aren't able to upload documents. And so how do they, without having to come into an office, access services?
Yeah, I mean, I think our equity values and principles are we don't want to leave anyone behind.
Yep.
So when we design systems and when we design that front door to government services, we want to make sure that it's accessible, because we have a lot of folks in Washington and all over the country that, because of a disability, they can't currently access and use our digital services.
Right.
So everything we do now has that accessibility lens in terms of how we're designing, our digital services, which we should be doing.
Right, or rural communities and accessing, offices if you aren't able to upload documents, or it's a real challenge for a lot of.
We don't want to leave any community behind. We don't want to leave any person behind. We want to have different ways of communicating, whether it's going into an office or using a portal or a website, but everything has to be accessible these days and equitable. We don't want to leave small rural communities out or certain individuals out. That's really important as we pursue our equity values and principles, and accessibility is a big part of that. We also know that, as you said, internet access is critical, and the digital divide is really, if you don't have digital access or internet access in your household, the opportunities that you don't have because of that are greater today, because there's so many things that are online. And so, making sure that we're leaning in with our partners in Department of Commerce when their digital equity broadband plan, and we're really identifying those areas in the state that need that attention, so we can get those households reduced price or some kind of access to the internet, so they can apply for jobs and get the services they need, healthcare. It's so important in today's age.
Access to information.
And it's part of how we're looking at modernization. We really are.